One of the things that we look for when women approach us and ask about joining the group is listening to see whether they are interested in learning and being with other women in a similar position. They share experience without being frightened that it's going to upset people around them, like their families or their friends, that it is a safe place because everyone in this room, in this group, knows is having a similar experience and knows what it's like.
To be told that you are going to die in a way, in a time that is not of your expectation is an enormous thing to have to take in, and takes a lot of time. Right from the beginning, when we interview, when we have this first meeting with a woman and maybe with a partner or an adult child if they will come along, we talk about all sorts of things at that interview, and it's a space where they can ask us questions and we can ask them questions, but it's also a space where we tell women that this is a group where women do die, and that can be very confronting, and what do they think about it, so that the theme of death is in this group right from the very beginning, right from when women first come to us.
If you've been told you have a terminal illness or an incurable illness, then the fear of death is hanging over you from the very beginning. But that is what's so difficult for people to talk about, and that's what I think we offer through this group, is that we try to help people to be able to talk about things that are frightening to them, but in a way that it's more manageable and bearable than if they were left with those fears on their own. I think one of the things we see very often is that people are very afraid that they're going to die straight away. In fact, sometimes that's how the message is delivered. They're told, go home, get your affairs in order. And it really is very frightening to be told that. When the reality is, we do know that some women may live for several years in relatively good health and with good quality of life.
One of the women in the group was very relieved when she heard another woman say that it in fact took her 2 years before she could sort of integrate the diagnosis and the impact of the diagnosis. That it took her a long time, and that was a very reassuring thing for someone else to hear, that just because it's taking you a long time doesn't mean that you're doing something strange about the whole thing.
We don't say there is a right way to do this is what you should be thinking, this is what you should be feeling, because who are we to do that? Who is anyone to tell someone in this situation what they should be thinking and feeling? It's a space where you're trying to support people to think about and figure out what they're feeling, and to be able to articulate that and put it into words.
Many of them say that they lose friends, that friends don't know how to talk to them, or that they feel if they're with friends that the friends are talking about their everyday lives and they feel quite separate because they have this diagnosis and they're thinking about death. And how do you say that when you're just having coffee with a group of friends? It's you can't
No.
say, just by the way, I'm dying.
You feel that other people are absorbed in just getting on with their lives, whereas you have this huge, sentence hanging over you, which you have to kind of make sense of, and then find ways of getting on with your life and living your life to the full. We do believe quite strongly that helping people to talk about the things that they're most afraid of actually is very beneficial. None of us likes to do it, and it's hard to do it, especially when it's thinking about dying or your own death. But I think being able to put into words the feelings that you have and the fears that you have actually makes things much more manageable. And especially if you do that in the company of other people going through similar experiences who get what you feel and who agree with you or who share those feelings.
They learn how other women manage the impact of the disease, how they manage the treatment and the impact of the side effects of the treatment, how they manage practicalities. What do you actually do when you lose your hair through chemotherapy? How have other women managed that? Find out information that they can take back to their doctors and say, so-and-so said that when she had this, her doctor did this. Can you help me find a better way of dealing with the impact of this?
I think one of the things we found is that everybody is kind of protecting one another, And while that's understandable in these circumstances, it's often not always the most helpful
that's right.
thing. And I think having the workshops where families can get together and discover that people are having similar experiences and difficulties, it can be a helpful way of opening up some of these discussions that then can go on at home.
In a two-edged way, I think. They reevaluate their lives, they reevaluate what it is they want to do with the time they have left, and that might mean making choices, and in the choices they might lose some of the things that they really valued before. You know, people might make decisions about continuing working or stopping working, but if work has been a huge part of your life, then to stop it to take advantage of what time you have left involves a loss of something that has been very valuable to you.
So you were saying before, we do ask women in the initial meeting that we have with them how they would feel about being in a group where someone will die. But I think when someone dies, I mean, certainly it's sad and it's confronting and it can be quite distressing, particularly if you felt very close to that woman. But at the same time, I think it can also prompt people to think about their own death. To some extent, people will say it's compelled them to actually think about things they've been putting off, like getting their affairs in order, or like thinking about how they want to die, whether they want to be cared for at home or whether they want to die in hospital.
The people who come to this group are people who want to sort of face the fact that they have this disease. Other women don't want to. They're quite happy to keep the treatment, sort of hand the treatment over to their oncologist to be in charge of, and they want to go and live their lives doing other things. So this group is not for everybody, but it's our experience and the evaluations that we do that this group, for the women who come, it helps them to manage these difficult feelings. And the women who come to this group, yeah, I mean, they're courageous and feisty and brave, and we admire them.